afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In continuation with the series on sociology of religion, in today's lecture we are going to talk about Karl Marx, his work on the Jewish question. We will try to understand Karl Marx's answer to the Jewish question, which was an article written by Bruno Boyer. So we try to understand what is the Jewish question, what was Bruno Boyer trying to articulate in the question, and what was the reply of Karl Marx. Basically, this essay on the Jewish question is trying to make an effort to understand what is the nature of secular state. Is state and religion kind of functions together, or are they completely separate? So this we will try to understand by looking into the essay on the Jewish question. So first let us understand what was the Jewish question. The Jewish question was specifically referring to the problem of religion in Germany, and which was kind of the debate in 19th and 20th century European society that was concerned or that was related to the way in which the Jews were being treated in Germany. Were the kind of question of giving up their religion in order to get the benefit of German society, and that is kind of a debate between Bruno Boyer and Karl Marx. So the problem was related to the civil, legal and national political status of Jews as minority within a society, particularly in Europe during the 18th, 19th and 20th century. This is also a problem when we look into from a historical perspective in terms of the changes which were taking place because of Renaissance and Reformation, where there was a lot of debates being in the discourses in society in terms of considering religion and politics as completely separate, and most of the time they were being attempted that secular meant that religion had nothing to do with politics, or politics would not support any kind of identity based on religion. But then there were many countries where there was the larger population was from one religion, that is Christianity, and then there were Jews who were the minority. So on one hand the debate was that in order to access or in order to be able to get privilege of the German state, the Jews had to give up their religious identity, and the other side it was that since German is not a kind of a religious state, therefore it could give the benefits to the Jews without their giving up the religious status. So ever since the Middle Age, Jews had relied upon goodwill of secular and ecclesiastical authorities for protection against the common. So earlier, before the Reformation, this is Middle Age, the Jews were given special protection because of certain kind of the political order which was at that point of time. And then we see religion, economy and politics kind of being more or less enmeshed. There was no separation between the three, and wealthy Jews, that is those who had economic power, enjoyed the patronage of bureaucracy and enjoyed special privilege. So economy, religion and politics, if you were all powerful in all the realm, that you had a nice status in the society. The rise of the modern nation state, and nation state when we talk about is specifically a political institution. So here then the economic condition and your religious conditions are not the criteria on which the state would treat you. So once the modern nation states would come in, which is with the wake of Napoleonic reform, fundamentally alter the relationship between wealthy Jews and the government. So once the nation state comes in, whether you are a rich Jew or a poor Jew will make no difference. So therefore these kind of exposing the contradictory changes that was taking place. Political reforms altered the status of Jews and ended their special patronage. So the German state's affiliation with Christianity explained the inequality. So Germany, the majority of the people were Christians, and the state had an affiliation to Christianity, and therefore the Jews became kind of mistreated, or they were not given any kind of special state protection. And the solution was thus to separate the state and church, abolish religion and bring political emancipation. So political emancipation here basically meant giving up your religion, giving up your religious identity in order to be able to be take the benefits of a state. So this is where one kind of an understanding was of the modernity, which also meant rationality, secular state, to give up your religious identity. So the religion became of less significant. Politics became important. So if you wanted the privilege of the state or the benefits of the state and you wanted to be emancipated, then you had to give up your religious identity. And this was being suggested to the Jews, that you, in order to be emancipated, you give up your religious. Bruno Boyer critiques the Jews as being greedy for wanting special privilege. So Bruno Boyer supported the argument that the Jews should not be given any kind of benefit and they should be kind of treated as minority. They would have to give up their religious identity if they wanted special privilege. So if they wanted to be treated like everybody equally. Karl Marx kind of questions, or rather critiques, Bruno Boyer and kind of questions this understanding of political emancipation, and he will kind of debate that political emancipation is not in terms of giving up one of your right against the other. It is enjoying both at the same time. And he gives us the understanding that United States achieved political emancipation. And political emancipation here in Karl Marx sense would mean separation of state and church. But kind of there will be lot of, if we read historical text, there will be lot of instances where though the church got separated from the state, yet it was not being able to develop a pure secular state. Why? Because some element of religion kind of interfered in the everyday life. On the other side, there were case examples where the state and the church separation has not been complete. The two are kind of exist together, yet it is a secular state. So what was Bruno Boyer's argument on the Jewish question? In his book, The Jewish Question, published in 1843, Boyer rejected the separation of the church and the state on the ground that it would encourage the alienation of subject from their spiritual essence. So he did not want the state to be separate, he rather wanted the individual, and here specifically the Jews, to give up their religion. This view of the state led him to oppose Jewish emancipation for two reasons. Not only had Judaism yet to attain to the Christian revelation of the Spirit, but it stood opposed to the spiritual life of the Prussian state. Bruno Boyer argued that religion, whether Jewish or Christian, was a barrier to emancipation. So, and that is why he kind of says that this religion has no space in the political emancipation. Because as long as religion is there, then it would be kind of difficult to achieve political emancipation. Bruno Boyer argued that Jews could achieve political emancipation only if they let go their religious consciousness, as he proposed that political emancipation required a secular state. And what is a secular state? A secular state is one which does not give preference on the basis of your religious belief. Such a state did not leave any space for social identity such as religion. According to Boyer, such religious demands are incompatible with the idea of right of man. True political emancipation requires the abolition of religion. So these, because rights of man could not be granted if we talk on the ground of religion, because it would be then difficult to ensure which religion to support and which to not to support. So basically Boyer was kind of more tuned to Christianity, and he was considered Judaism as a less developed religion, and therefore he was kind of in support of Jews giving up their religion and kind of converting themselves to Christianity. He drew a theological line of distinction between Judaism and Christianity. In the process, he depicts Judaism as a narrow and tribal, Christianity as universal and superior. This is a kind of a bias that Bruno Boyer had, and where he is kind of already working with his assumption that Christianity is a more developed religion and Judaism is a tribal religion, and therefore it was need for Jews to give up Judaism and kind of convert to Christianity. While Christianity was able to adapt to the separation of state and church, by privatizing religious practices, Jews could only be emancipated by rejecting Judaism altogether. So here is the problem, that when he is saying that separation of the church and state is not required, he said that the German state could be a Christian state, Christians in that Germany could enjoy the privilege of being a Christianity, but when Jews had to talk about the political rights or talk about political emancipation, then they had to give up their religion. And there is kind of a difference in terms of treating two populations differently. The reason was that Christianity, notably in the Protestant manifestation, was based on faith, which was ultimately private, while Jewish religion was based on law and therefore more or close to public. This is the argument that Bruno Boyer gives, that why Judaism should go was because it was more of a public religion. So another way in which the secularism was being understood during this period was to understand religion as a private sphere. So state could continue being a Christian state as long as it was kind of more concerned with private aspect. But Judaism as a religion could not be part of the political state because it was more a public state. Bruno Boyer argued that Jewish emancipation is a sham because Jews would be unable to prefer the state laws over their own laws or the religious law without giving up Jewishness. As a religion of law, not of faith, Judaism was by its very nature a public creed. This was what was the argument given by Bruno Boyer. So Bruno Boyer wanted the Jews to give up their religion on account that he was comparing Judaism with Christianity. He considered Judaism as to be an inferior religion, as a public religion, compared to Christianity, which was a more progressed universal religion and a private kind of thing. Next, now we try to understand how Karl Marx critiques Bruno Boyer, and in his criticism what emerges is his understanding of the nature of a secular state. When we talk about a secular state, he will talk about a developed state or a progressive state which will not kind of deny its citizen any kind of limitations by asking them to give up their religion. So that is the critique of Marx of Bruno Boyer. So what he tries to do is that he says that Bruno Boyer, in his understanding of the Jewish question, fails to define political emancipation. When he says that political emancipation can be achieved by the Jews giving up their religion is problematic. So Bruno Boyer only considers Christian state. He is giving preference to the Christian state, or rather he is considering Christianity as more of a pure religion or a universal religion. And this is an issue because there are other countries that are secular but are not Christian state or does not see Christianity as the main religion. So if we go by Bruno Boyer, then it would imply that all secular states are states which kind of have a larger majority as Christianity, which according to historical fact is incorrect. Bruno Boyer argues that in order to be considered equal by the state, or the citizens to be treated equal by the state, there is a need to abolish religion. In contrary, Marx says that you need not give up your religion, because in the United States they have religion and everyone is still considered equal. So you can continue your religion, but the law of the land would treat everybody equal irrespective of their religious belief. So political emancipation happens in the opposite way. It is kind of completely opposed to what Bruno Boyer suggested. Marx criticized Bruno Boyer for presenting a theological argument, differentiating between Jews and Christian, yet failing to reflect on the notion of political emancipation. When we say Bruno Boyer gave us a theological argument, is that when we look into theology, theology kind of gives us a statement where one religion is kind of considered as superior to the other, or the truth of one religion is considered to be more acceptable than the other. And this is what Bruno Boyer was trying to do. If we go from a sociological understanding, then both Jewish and Christianity are belief systems. They are ways in which it is helping their believers to organize their life. So a sociological understanding of religion will not make a difference between the Jewish and the Christian. And we need to understand political emancipation within the sociological discourse. So, it implies that there will be a separation between the public sphere of state and a private sphere of civil society. So, what is the public sphere? The public sphere is the nation state, which includes the citizens, which includes the laws, the constitution, and it will function within the public sphere where there is no place for religion, versus the private sphere of civil society, and the civil society in its private element will include religion. Political emancipation, according to Marx, implies the first thing it implies is the separation between the church and the state. So, there are two kinds of a distinction. The church first is a political institution, is a religious institution, it's a private sphere, versus the state, which is a political institution and it is a public sphere. So, we need to make a separation between the church and the state in order to ensure political emancipation. Religion has to be relegated to the civil society. So, political emancipation covered the material inequality of civil society. So, what does that mean? That in civil society, you have religion, you have culture, you will be having economic differences. So, what is the role of state? The state is only going to look into the difference between the citizen on the ground of material basis. So, it will try to ensure that the resources, the material resources are equally distributed, and it will has no interference or no saying in the cultural or the religious dimension of civil society. Political emancipation covered the material inequality of civil society, which only could be overcome by a truly human emancipation. And how is that? So he is making a distinction between political emancipation and human emancipation. So, the political emancipation implies that along with your religion, the state is going to protect or ensure that there is no difference in terms of the material condition. The human emancipation implies that being a member of the civil society, you have the right to enjoy or to practice your own social and cultural belief system within which religion falls. So, when we look into political emancipation by Karl Marx, he talks about the Jewish question was more than just theology. It was an expression of the general question of time, the relation between political and human emancipation. Political emancipation expressed first in all the separation of church and the state makes religion an instance of the civil society. So, when we try to understand political emancipation, we need to keep in mind 2 points. Number 1, that the state is separate from the church, and number 2, religion is the part of the civil society or it is the private sphere. Political emancipation covers the material inequality of civil society, which could be overcome by a truly human emancipation. The Jews and the Christians. So, when we look into political emancipation, then the Jews and the Christians are to be treated equally by the state, and they are kind of politically emancipated in various states. So, as citizen, whether you are a Jew or a Christian, you have the privilege or the rights to your existence. So, you can freely practice your religion, and that would imply that you are also being humanly emancipated. The political emancipation of the Jews or the Christian, of religious man in general, is the emancipation of the state from Judaism, Christianity and religion in general. This is a line from Karl Marx, and that implies, in simple words, implies that the state is not going to prefer or give preference to any religion, whether it be Jewish or Christian. It will allow its citizen to practice the religion of its choice. It is not going to dictate the terms and conditions. The state emancipates itself from religion, and that's political emancipation. The mode which corresponds to its nature by emancipating itself from state religion. So, when we talk about a secular state, it implies that there is no state religion. No state religion in the sense that there is no population which would be supported because of the belief system. Because they belong to a particular religion, they will not be given benefits of the nation state. No religion would be given special recognition, and it is kind of purely and simply as a state. So, as a political institution, it is going to ensure that the rules and regulations are, there is an order in society, resources are equitably distributed, there is control, and the cultural element or the social element into which the religion falls is not to be decided or determined by the state. To be politically emancipated from religion is not to be finally and completely emancipated from religion, because political emancipation is not the final and absolute form of human emancipation. So, if we kind of consider political emancipation as giving up your religion, so if you are asked to give up your religion, then you are not fully considered as a human being. Then you will be kind of forced to take on the belief system or the cultural practice of another community. So, you may be politically emancipated, that is, you might be getting the rights and benefits of the state, but you will not be considering yourself as a true human being. And therefore, in order for the understanding of a secular state, it has to be both political emancipation and human emancipation. And this is possible only when the state and the religion is kind of separate, and state does not interfere in the functioning or in the belief system of its citizen. But the political suppression of private property not only does not abolish private property, it actually presupposes its existence. So, basically when we try to understand private property and the emergence of capital state, which led to the emergence of nation state, we see that more we try to kind of put regulation into the private property, it will kind of lead to more of its growth, and therefore, the more we try to abolish this religion, the more the chances that people become more strong in their belief system. The state abolishes after its fashion the distinction established by birth, social rank, education, occupation, when it decrees that birth, social rank, education, occupations are non-political distinction. When the state proclaims without regard to these distinctions in the sense of your social distinctions, your birth into a community, your religion that you acquire, these are your distinctions. Every member of society is an equal partner in a popular sovereignty and treats all the elements which compose the real life of the nation from the standpoint of the state. So, the state is not going to make any kind of discrimination on the basis of the birth. So, whether you are born into one community with a particular belief system, since the fact is that you are a citizen of that state, you are entitled to certain rights, and those rights cannot be denied because of your social cultural value. Human emancipation, what does human emancipation means? It means empathy for others in society. That is, everybody is to be treated as a human being, irrespective of your identity, irrespective of the distinctions. So, the consciousness of being a part of a species, which is the human species, and wanting to help or feel sorry for others, because we can empathize and truly be equal. We can recognize ourselves as a community. So, the human emancipation is the fact that when we have a feeling for the other, irrespective of whether he is a Jew or a Christian, he is a member of the community. And when we have that feeling, only then we will be kind of having human emancipations. If we don't have that human emancipation, then it will lead to alienation, because then you will not be able to develop an interaction with your community. You will not be able to have a community life, and there, just as capitalism led to alienation, the lack of human emancipation in a society would lead to alienation. So, if individuals are not allowed to kind of practice the religion of their choice, that is the distinction at which is the identity, then they will feel alienated, or they will kind of get isolated from the community. It is kind of pointless to claim that Jews can be emancipated only when they give up Judaism. So the Bruno Boyer's argument that Jews will only get emancipation when they give up their religion is something which Karl Marx totally disagrees with. And he says that the larger problem lies in the way we think about emancipation. And that is what Karl Marx says, that emancipation, we have to make a distinction between political emancipation and human emancipation. The key idea lies in the way modern state treats capitalism. So capitalism is in terms of interest towards private property. We have more and more desire to move towards having more and more individual property. So what is it implying is that the state is supporting in the growth of private property. It is leading to the decline of human emancipation. People are getting detached from the community life, and the more we move towards a detached individual life, it will kind of lead to more and more of alienation and isolation. Karl Marx says that political emancipation is the dissolution of old society of feudalism. Bruno Boyer made a mistake to imagine religious emancipation in itself. It could not free humanity. For Marx, the most far-going version of political emancipation cannot succeed in achieving freedom. So emancipation is in the sense of feeling human beings first. And if you look into Karl Marx theory again in terms of understanding secular state, we will again put it within the materialistic perspective, where even the whole idea of understanding emancipation is being linked to the concept of private property and capitalism. So by this, he is trying to kind of give us an understanding of what is a secular state, and it implies that there is a kind of a separation of church and the state does not kind of interfere or determine the way in which individual will practice this social and cultural life. With this, I come to an end of today's lecture. Thank you.